In the heart of a busy restaurant, a quiet dishwasher worked double shifts without pay, never asking for help, never showing her struggle. But when a stranger in worn sneakers joined the kitchen, he wasn't there for the job. He was there for the truth. What he uncovered about her life beyond those walls would change everything. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to the channel and like the video and tell us where you are watching from. If this story moved you, we'd love to hear your thoughts, so drop a comment below and let us know what you think. Now, let's jump into the story. The clang of metal cut through the air like a sudden crack of thunder. The kitchen of Riverside Bistro was alive with heat, steam, and the constant shuffle of hurried feet. Pans hissed on the stove, plates clattered against counters, and orders flew across the pass in sharp voices. It was Friday night, the busiest of the week, and there was no room for mistakes. In the far corner, Claire Morgan stood at the dish station. Her hair was tied back in a loose knot, a faded apron wrapped around her waist. Her hands were submerged in warm, soapy water, moving in a steady rhythm as she scrubbed, rinsed, and stacked. The air was thick, but she kept her head down, letting the noise wash over her. Across the room, Harold, the kitchen manager, barked orders at the line cooks. He was quick to notice when things went wrong, but rarely when they went right. His voice cut through the hum of the kitchen. Table 6 wanted the salmon, not the chicken. Get it right. The tension spiked, but Claire stayed silent. She wasn't on the cooking line, yet somehow mistakes always seemed to find their way toward her. Near the prep station, a new face moved quietly, carrying trays and wiping down counters. To everyone, he was Tom, the new kitchen hand. Cheap sneakers, second-hand uniform, name tag clipped slightly crooked. No one knew he was actually Daniel Hart, the CEO of the hospitality group that owned Riverside Bistro. He had been here for almost 2 weeks, blending into the background, watching, listening. Daniel hadn't come here on a whim. Years ago, he'd watched his father work in kitchens just like this: long hours, low pay, and constant pressure. When illness forced his father to stop working, there had been no safety net. Those memories stayed with him, even as he rose to the top of the business. Lately, the reports from his managers painted a perfect picture, but he no longer trusted perfect pictures. He wanted the truth, and the only way to find it was to see it with his own eyes. It didn't take long before one worker caught his attention: Claire Morgan. She was always there before her shift officially started, always still working long after it ended. She never complained, never slowed down, never said no when someone asked her to take on more. As the rush eased for a moment, Daniel moved to help wipe down the counters near the dish pit. "You okay?" he asked casually, not looking directly at her. "I'm fine," she said, her voice low but steady. He noticed the faint redness on her hands, the small cracks in the skin from hours in hot water and harsh chemicals. "That mix-up earlier wasn't your fault," he said. She gave a faint smile. "It never is," and she kept working. He asked how long she'd been training. 14 days, she replied, still scrubbing. 2 shifts a day, Daniel frowned. "You've been working doubles for 2 weeks? She nodded. "I'm not officially hired yet, just proving myself." He asked if that was even legal. She gave a short, dry laugh. "Does it really matter?" Before he could respond, she walked away with a stack of trays. Later that night, when most of the kitchen had emptied out, Daniel lingered near the supply closet, pretending to check inventory. He saw Claire return to the dish station, arms deep in greasy water. She worked with quiet focus, almost mechanical in her movements. Nearby, a bread basket sat by the prep line. Most of it had been thrown out, but a small piece remained, a heel of baguette. Claire glanced around. Her eyes moved quickly, scanning the room. Then she dried her hands on her apron, reached for the bread, and held it gently, as if it was something rare. She took a small bite, slow and deliberate. Daniel stood still. It wasn't just the fact that she was hungry. It was the way she moved. Quiet, careful, like someone used to hiding mead. Like someone who had learned to carry struggle behind a polite smile. In that moment, he felt a pull in his chest. She reminded him of his father, of long nights in kitchens just like this, of the cost of silence. He had come here looking for facts. Instead, he found a story, and he wasn't sure he was ready for where it might lead. The rain had stopped, but the streets still glistened under the dim glow of the streetlights. Daniel stepped out of Riverside Bistro after his shift, his mind still replaying the image of Claire eating that small piece of bread as if it were the most important thing she had all day. He watched her from across the road as she left the restaurant, a simple paper bag in her hand. She walked quickly, shoulders hunched, head down, as if hoping the world wouldn't notice her. Something made him follow. It wasn't curiosity. It was a quiet pull, a need to understand what lay beyond the walls of the kitchen. Claire turned down a narrow street lined with old brick buildings. The paint was peeling, windows sagging in their frames, and the air smelled faintly of damp wood. She entered a small apartment complex, the kind time seemed to have forgotten. Daniel waited a few moments before crossing the street and lingering near the gate. From the faint light behind torn blinds on the ground floor, he caught a glimpse inside. The living room was small, barely enough space for a couch and a foldable table. A single framed photo hung on the wall. 2 children, standing beside an older woman, all smiling in the faded image. Claire set the paper bag on the table, then disappeared down the hallway. Moments later, she returned pushing a wheelchair. An elderly woman sat slumped in the seat, her gray hair thin, her eyes distant. "Hi, Nana," Claire whispered, kneeling beside her. She adjusted the blanket over the woman's lap, then unpacked the bag, mashed potatoes, a bread roll, and a small container of soup. She sat on the floor and began feeding her grandmother slowly, patiently. The older woman didn't speak, but Claire's voice was soft and steady, filling the silence with quiet care. Daniel's chest tightened. He could see the fatigue in Claire's shoulders, yet there was no frustration in her movements. She was gentle, almost protective, as if every moment mattered. When her grandmother was finished, Claire wheeled her into a small bedroom, tucking her in with the same care. Then she opened another door. Inside, a teenage boy sat cross-legged on a thin mattress, a notebook balanced on his knees. "Still awake?" Claire asked. "Trying to finish this math homework," the boy muttered. Claire smiled faintly and joined him on the floor. "Let me see." They bent over the notebook together. She explained the problem, tracing numbers with her finger, making sure he understood before moving on. Her patience never wavered, even when he groaned in frustration. When they finished, she tousled his hair lightly. "Big day tomorrow, Liam. Get some rest." "I'm not a kid," he said, but there was a small grin on his face as she kissed the top of his head. Claire stepped back into the living room. She unwrapped the bread roll left in the bag and sat on the couch. There was no television playing, no music, just silence. She ate slowly, stretching each bite, her eyes fixed on nothing in particular. Daniel stayed outside, his hands in his pockets, the cool night air pressing against him. He had seen the numbers in reports, shifts worked, wages paid, hours logged, but none of that told him the truth. The truth was here. In this dim apartment, where a young woman held her family together with the strength of someone who could not afford to break. Over the next few days, he saw more. Claire arriving before sunrise, leaving long after dark. She never touched her phone at work. She never complained when someone added more trays to her station. She never turned down extra shifts, even when it was clear she was running on nothing but willpower. One evening, during a busy service, a pot slipped from the counter and smashed into the sink. Shards scattered, and Claire reached in too quickly. A jagged edge caught her palm, leaving a thin line of red. She hid the cut behind her back, gripping a towel tightly. Daniel followed her into the supply area, pulling a clean handkerchief from his pocket. He wrapped it around her hand gently. She looked at him for a moment, her eyes tired but not afraid. "You always carry that?" she asked. "Old habit," he replied. She gave a small nod. "I've had worse." Then she went back to the dishes, keeping the handkerchief in place. Later that week, a storm cut the power at the restaurant. While others hesitated in the dim light, Claire moved quickly, placing small candles along the counters, guiding people through the kitchen without hesitation. In the soft glow, she kept working, her movements steady and sure. Daniel watched her from across the room. She wasn't just surviving. She was keeping everything around her from falling apart. And for the first time, he began to realize this wasn't just about uncovering unfair work practices. It was about someone who had built her life on quiet strength, someone who deserved more than to be invisible. The kitchen was a storm of noise. Orders rang out, pans clashed, and the hiss of steam filled the air. It was one of those nights when everything seemed to go wrong at once. Harold, the kitchen manager, stalked toward the pass with a plate in hand. "Who made this?" he snapped, holding up a grilled pork chop. "Table 9 asked for the herb salmon special, not this." No one answered. Eyes dropped to cutting boards and sink. His gaze landed on Claire. "Was this you again?" She froze, sponge in hand. Her voice was barely audible. "Every time there's a mistake, it's you," Harold barked. "I should have let you go weeks ago." Daniel was stacking trays nearby. Before he could think, he stepped forward. "It wasn't her. She hasn't touched the tickets all shift. I was there when the order was called." Harold turned sharply. "You've been here 5 minutes, Tom. Don't act like you know how this place works." Claire moved closer, her hand brushing Daniel's sleeve. Her voice was soft, almost pleading. "Don't," she whispered. "It's not okay," he muttered. "It has to be," she said. "If he fires me, there's no backup, no second job. My family needs me." Daniel's jaw tightened. The noise of the kitchen seemed far away now. This wasn't just about keeping a job. It was about survival. Harold dropped the plate on the counter and walked away, muttering under his breath. The rest of the shift passed in tense silence. An hour later, the rush had died down. Claire slipped into the break room, her shoulders hunched. Daniel followed quietly. The light inside was dim, flickering slightly. She sat on the bench, arms wrapped around herself. She didn't look up when she spoke. "I didn't mess up that order, but it's easier to take the blame." Daniel sat beside her, leaving space between them. "I thought if I stayed quiet, worked harder, maybe things would get better," she said. "But it just keeps getting heavier." Her voice shook, but she didn't cry. Then, as if the weight became too much, tears slicked silently down her cheeks. No sobs, no sound, just quiet tears, the kind of tears someone learns to hide. Daniel didn't try to give speeches or make promises. He just placed a hand gently on her shoulder. For a moment, she leaned into it, letting herself breathe. 2 nights later, the restaurant was near closing. Most of the staff had clocked off. Claire was still at the sink, hands moving slower than usual. Daniel called to her, but she didn't answer. She reached for a box of rags on the top shelf, standing on her toes. Then she swayed, her knees giving way. "Claire!" Daniel rushed forward, catching her before she hit the floor. She was light in his arms, her breathing shallow. He carried her to the break room and laid her on the worn couch. Dampening a towel with cool water, he pressed it to her forehead. After a moment, her eyes fluttered open. Her first words were not about herself. "Am I fired?" Daniel blinked, startled. "No, of course not." She let out a shaky breath. "Don't tell my Nana. She worries too much. If she thinks I'm not okay, she'll stop eating again." Daniel swallowed hard. "You need to rest." "I can't," she said, trying to sit up. "I have to keep this job." He held her back gently. "Just for tonight, let someone else carry the weight." Her eyes filled again, not from weakness, but from the exhaustion of fighting too many battles alone. Daniel took her hand, holding it firmly, but without pressure. She looked at their hands for a long moment, as if deciding whether to pull away. She didn't. "You're kind," she whispered. "I just hate seeing good people fall," he replied. They stayed like that until her breathing evened out. Daniel realized then that this wasn't just about unfair shifts or unpaid hours. It was about a life stretched to breaking, a person holding everything together until there was nothing left to hold on with. And for the first time, he knew with certainty, he couldn't just walk away after this. The notice came the night before. Every staff member was to attend a morning meeting at Riverside Bistro. No exceptions. No one knew why. The dining area buzzed with low whispers as cooks, servers, and kitchen hands gathered. Harold paced near the counter, muttering instructions under his breath. Claire sat toward the back, her hands folded, her face calm but unreadable. The double doors opened. Daniel walked in, not as Tom, the kitchen hand, but in a dark suit and tie. The room stilled. Harold's voice wavered. "Can I help you, sir?" Daniel met his eyes. "I think you already have," he said. He stepped to the front, his voice steady. "My name is Daniel Hart. I am the CEO of Heartland Hospitality Group. For the last several weeks, I've been working here undercover." The room fell silent. Some eyes widened. Harold's face drained of color. "I came," Daniel continued, "because numbers can be changed and reports can be polished, but truth lives in the everyday moments. Who stays late without being asked? Who takes the blame to keep peace? Who eats last, if at all?" He picked up a remote. The screen above the bar lit up with quiet footage from security cameras. Claire, washing dishes long after closing. Claire, taking in extra trays without a word. Claire, holding her cut hand behind her back. Claire collapsing in the supply room. Harold shifted uncomfortably. This is out of context. Claire rose from her seat. She walked to the front, her steps slow but firm. "You think because I'm quiet, you can treat me however you want," she said, her voice steady. "You think silence means permission, but it doesn't." She turned to the staff. "We all have the right to work with dignity. We all have the right to live, not just survive." A murmur of agreement passed through the room. A few heads nodded. Even the quiet dishwasher in the back straightened. Daniel stepped down from the platform, standing beside her. "You didn't just speak for yourself today, Claire. You spoke for everyone who's afraid to lose their voice. And you're right. No one here should ever feel invisible." He turned to Harold. "You're done here, effective immediately." No one clapped, but the silence that followed was different now. No longer fear, but relief. Daniel faced Claire again. "I wasn't just watching you," he said quietly. "I was learning from you, and I have something for you." He held out an envelope. "This is a full scholarship for you to finish your studies in occupational therapy. and a position as senior advisor for employee advocacy in our company. I want you to help us build a better system." Claire's hands trembled slightly as she accepted it. "Why?" she asked. Daniel's voice softened. "Because you showed me that strength isn't about titles or money. It's about gratitude, humility, and the courage to keep going." Weeks passed, the leaves turned gold, and the air grew crisp. Claire's days were now split between her studies and her new role, where she worked to create fairer policies for employees across the company. But the biggest change came on Saturday mornings. In the heart of the neighborhood stood a small community kitchen, its doors open. The smell of fresh bread and soup spilling into the street. It had been Claire's idea, funded by the company and run by volunteers. Here, families in need could eat without cost, without questions. On one busy morning, Daniel arrived wearing rolled-up sleeves, helping ladle soup into bowls. Liam worked beside him, grinning as he handed bread to guests. In the corner, Claire's grandmother sat in a wheelchair, healthier now, a warm scarf around her neck. She smiled every time Claire passed by. After the last bowls were served, Claire stepped outside. The sun broke through the clouds, casting light over the street. Daniel joined her, handing her a cup of tea. "You built something," he said. "We built something," she corrected. They stood in the doorway, watching the chatter inside. Laughter mixed with the clink of cutlery. There was no rush here, no shouting, no fear, just people eating together, safe and welcome. Claire glanced at Daniel, her voice quiet but certain. "Kindness doesn't just change a life. Sometimes it builds a place where everyone belongs." And for the first time in a long time, she wasn't just holding her world together. She was helping build a new one.